Okay, recording again. All right. Okay, so there's a architecture and design company called Morphosis. They're still in existence. Show you they have a website with a lot of pretty cool stuff on it. This Blades House in Santa Barbara, California. I don't recall when it was finished. Begun in 1992. Um, but you see some similar um, like unique angles, really leaving the strict modernism of someone like Mies van der Rohe behind. Beautiful. I have to say, I really enjoy the unique geometry of it, and like this facade that just leaves some parts open and some parts concealed. And it's really like this. To me, this like it's they bring in. It's almost like they approach it as if it's a collage. And that's something that's been said of Frank Gehry's work, that it's he designs a building as if he's making a collage, which is really a very unique approach. Um, and this like this, I'm sure you've seen this if you've looked at any modern architecture with the concrete left with the wood grain from the molds that are used. Um,
Doctor?
yes,
Sorry. Can you share the slides?
Yeah, I can see the slides too.
excuse me.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. I'm recording, but I forgot to share the screen. Thank you for saying something. I would have just kept going on, and you wouldn't have had any idea what I was talking about. There we go. Well, let's go back. You can see just what the heck I was talking about. Hmm? So, it's in architecture. You look at something like this. It looks like like this. Sort of like coppery surface. It looks like this is a volume when it's really just like a more like a it's a surface enclosing space. But you see them more like they're solid, like a solid and a void, more like a almost like it's really like a more fundamental exercise in like uh, like a spatial composition. So, here's where I'm talking about. I was talking about collage. So, they would, they would have, walls set at angles, windows set at angles, and you have, I guess, a little bit more like um, a unique problem of like you have to with this architecture you have to find you have to have the right builder because some of this architecture requires someone that is skilled and willing to do it. So you can see here this like this unfinished concrete where they just left took the mold off and just left the concrete alone. I don't always love that as a as I guess as an appearance of like the way concrete looks. I really like concrete that's finished, um, but this is kind of a thing. You know, like when people decide, no, leave it unfinished, similar to Frank Gehry's plywood and corrugated metal and chain link. And here on interior, really, and again, there's this modernist. You know, this is furniture designed by Le Corbusier, the Grand Confort chair. But you know, the interior is really as much of a spatial collage as the exterior. More so since it's inside. How does this look to you? How do you respond to this?
Seems pretty interesting. It feels, personally, it feels a little cold, but it's definitely like has a very cool look to it.
Yeah, it feels cold.
Yeah, but that's maybe a personal.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, I'm interested in personal opinions here.
Yeah.
Does it seem like because there's just like maybe the concrete?
The concrete, there's a lack of texture or fabric,
Yeah,
at least from this view.
yeah. No soft surfaces. That's a good point. Yeah, and I mean, like a soft area carpet wouldn't hurt you, right? Would that kill them to put one of those in there?
Exactly.
You know, I mean, like concrete's tough. You know, I know like work if you're ever working all day on concrete, they really feel it. It's nice to have some soft surfaces along with those hard surfaces. Um, so this is another like house in Los Angeles. Um, you know, more of this like crazy like you know postmodern. This house to me screams postmodern, with the window turned diagonally for no reason other than to just do something different. Um, and the shape, you know, the sort of unusual shape of the roof, and you see almost like it's a cross section, as if somebody just kind of cut right through the house. Um, yeah. This is what happens when you keep people under restraint for so long. Then they break out and they do this. So this, you know, like a lot of different materials, um, unique angles, concrete. I like it where they have the concrete more polished. And then again, this like big interior um, with you know the multiple levels all like sort of available in this big atrium type of space. And that you know that 80s furniture really I like I've told this like cartoon character of a chair down here I think is kind of strange and wonderful. Um, yeah, but this does it look fun to you in here at all?
It is fun,
Yeah.
bright, yeah, colorful.
Mm-hmm. I do like the addition of color. You know, something that you know the postmodernists and this like sort of deconstructionist approach. Um, you know, yeah, I mean, like Mies van der Rohe was kind of dreary in a way. He was serious. A lot of them were very, very serious. So this is definitely playful and you know really does not is not trying to please uh, anyone but the architect and the client. Yeah, and really just like unusual, like this like marble surface up here, which is really like it's an odd place for it. Yeah, really, it is a bit, it's definitely like a little, in a way, some of it's just like there's so much going on. Could be a little disorienting. This, going back a little bit here to the 50s, Le Corbusier, this is a residential project of his with some of this similar kind of like, collage-y kind of stuff. So they haven't, they're not completely leaving the like modernism behind. It's just it's a new kind of modernism that they're after. And similar, like you look up, there's just a lot of it is a interesting spatial composition of surfaces, angles, um, planes, volumes, cavities. Rem Koolhaas, Dutch architect. I showed you a little bit of his work that the Student Center at IIT that he collaborated with a group of graduate students for that. This is a kind of a like one of his best known projects from the late 90s. And it's similar to some modernist kind of houses, like the Farnsworth House, which is like really like very very open. This is even more open because the structure is there's like not a lot of interior structure. It's all on the outer, like on the outer part of that interior space. But like here, just like this, seeing this like massive, what looks like a big, massive rectangular volume projecting out into space, and it has the Corten steel, which is the steel that's meant to rust, and just sort of give you that sort of rusty patina, which if it you kind of have to, like, to me, like there's a certain amount of luck involved with Corten steel. Sometimes it'll just like darken, blacken, and look really cool. Sometimes it just looks beat up and dilapidated. But how about this space, like right under here? Isn't that nice? I love that interior space. And you've got upstairs, downstairs. With this downstairs has this courtyard area, and the love like the portholes in that area with the Corten steel. It's pretty. There's a lot going on here. Really, I guess it reminds me a little bit of Mies, little like the Tugendhat house of Mies van der Rohe. But check out this. Where is the there? You like walk like it's just the stairs down. There's like these open areas, which like if you're not paying attention, you don't fall down into one of these pits that he creates in this house. And I also love the addition of some of the traditional French furniture um, because the contrast. There's sort of like this nice contrast with the brand, really like new, like avant-garde architecture and comforting traditional furniture. I think it helps to have something comforting like that in the interior like this. Maybe I should say, I can understand why someone would, why that would be appealing to somebody. We'll go back here through there. This boy, the reflective, the curtain to the sort of like the sort of metallic curtain to reflect sunlight away. I think is an interesting choice. Yeah, that's a little DIY to me, a little too DIY to me. Boy, I really do like what he does with space in this house, don't you? Okay, finally for this presentation, um, a little bit of like Zaha Hadid, the Contemporary Art Center in Cincinnati that was finished in 2004. I really like, similar to some of these others with this like collage element. I really do love the way these like what looks like these like volumes projecting out from the facade. What they do in terms of complex, like really more of a sculptural composition. So a lot of the postmodernists, you take ideas of modernism, and they like this is like you know um, making things asymmetrical or almost rectangular, not quite rectangular, just like making it um, a little bit less expected. So they're trying really hard, and I think succeeding in creating something that creates a little bit of surprise for people that for those that see it and use it. And here, similar to that Daniel Liebeskind interior of the Denver Art Museum, these stairs and escalators going at like these like um, angles that are not parallel to each other. So going up or down becomes part of like moving through this space becomes part of the experience, like where you really that sort of forces you to experience the building. That's that for that one. That deconstruction. That is in Blackboard. I have a folder for week 15. Last week being the week of Thanksgiving, where we did not have a class meeting, would have been week 14. So there is no week 14 for the class. Any questions about that?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So are any of the like deconstructed houses, are they more susceptible to, or I guess can they be more susceptible to like different weather elements?
Um, I would say, well, I guess I would have to say I don't know, but do you mean like rain?
Yeah, like either like rain or like really bad hail. Like if,
Yeah.
some parts are like wood, so I just didn't know if you knew like how strong some of them would be.
Um, well, I think they would still be, conform to building standards. Um, but I do know that I've spoken with people who have used buildings designed by Frank Gehry, and they say I've heard from several people that they leak. And part of the problem is when you build these unique angles, you have to do a really good job sealing the seams, otherwise you'll get leakage. And water is the enemy of architecture. So yeah, like some of them, like if you're thinking like with this, like the Rem Koolhaas, to me, like with large windows and like just a like a thin glass membrane between you and the outside. Now, if you're in a place where it's hot, it's going to get hot inside. Like that. It's hard to. It's you need a good HVAC system to control the environment inside when, you know, like you're kind of susceptible to temperature changes outdoors, or you're affected by them. So, but I mean, it's an interesting question. I don't know what, you know, I mean, I think that's something that we have to think about more and more now with, you know, weather becoming more and more extreme, that we have to think about how that might affect what we build. You know, but that's something that with, you know, like even going back to the modernists and Mies van der Rohe, they had to find the right builders. Otherwise, you know, they had to find the right builders that could build this new architecture, because, you know, artists that were, I guess, builders that were used to building buildings the old way were not really, they probably weren't going to be able to do it, or they might not, you know, they might not do it the way it would needed to be done. They might not do a good job. So.
I might do some more research on that. That's really interesting, though. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's do. Okay, can you see this new one with other recent trends?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Okay. All right. So this is a this is a shorter one, and then I think I'm kind of reaching the end of my my ability for the day. All right. Yeah. So you know we're kind of getting. You know, like the last 20 years, I think we've had like what, I guess, you know, architects sort of pushing like what architecture can be, like, you know, what can you do with it? This large triangular um, building in Barcelona. Unusual, you betcha. But really, this guy, Santiago Calatrava, I think is an important person to talk about. Have any of you been to the Milwaukee Art Museum and seen this? Oh, darn it. My mouse is a very sensitive little creature. So the Milwaukee Art Museum, so Santiago Calatrava is a Spanish architect. He's also an engineer. And so he is able to do the engineering of his buildings as he's designing them. And so he tends to, you know, make he tends to be a little bit more daring in terms of structure because he knows how to make the structure work as he's designing it. This is like the new wing of the Milwaukee Art Museum, is pretty cool. There's, you know, it's not that well designed for displaying artwork, but I love being in the space. It's really meant more as, I mean, it really is like it's a showpiece, and it's worth going to see it because it's a beautiful space to be in. And this, you know, this atrium. So you can see here, there's this atrium skylight right here, and these wings that cover it, and they can open the wings like this. They can open up the cover from that's on over the skylight, and it looks like a bird. So it's a nice idea. It didn't have to be done, but that's we do this because it's interesting, not because it's everything has to be practical and functional. This a pretty spectacular this auditorium in Tenerife, which is Canary Islands, Spain. This is concrete. And so you see this big curving triangular plane of concrete that curves over the top. There is a structure that is like a spine inside it that allows it to sort of hold, like to sort of like curve and stay where it's sort of stay in place. Of course, the concrete gets the closer you get to the point of that curving plane, the lighter it is. But this is, to me, this kind of thing where like this, we do this, like you do this because it's interesting. You could have made the opera house this, or like this auditorium or opera house without it, and it would have been a very beautiful place too. Still, there's the interior. Isn't that nice? Would you see a show there?
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, I would.
It's huge.
Have you been there? Yeah, and there is the lobby area. He does a nice job with concrete. And in this case, I like that, like the really like the ridges in the concrete sort of give it a nice texture. He designed a lot of train stations. That's the TGV is a rail line in France. And
It kind of looks like Oculus in New York. Is
Yeah.
that the same
Same guy.
architect?
Yep, same guy.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, he designed that Oculus for. Was that it? Is that like at the new Penn Station?
Sorry?
Is that at the new Penn Station?
No, it's like next to the One World Trade Center.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah. Yeah. So this is. I think it's a good. Like. It's a good. I think it's a good example of how like it's a train station. Um, but this decision to make this an architectural feature, like this, like the whole station is an architectural, um, you know, uh, gem in a way. I mean, I guess you could say that. I'm glad people still do this because it could have been just dull and utilitarian. This way, it's exciting and utilitarian. Okay, so there's a couple of the this ecclesiastical architecture. Ife Jones, the Mildred Cooper Chapel at Bella Vista, Arkansas. So this slide is here because you see some of these what look like crossing vaults. Really quite beautiful. And another, that's a bit of a dark image. But there's a lot of this like structure is like used as a design element. So like there's really like no difference between the design, the structure, and the I guess the appearance. Mercedes-Benz Museum in Stuttgart. So this is large scale, almost. I mean, you know, these guys have also done like stadiums and things like that. But it's, you know, really is a similar. It's like big concrete spaces. This Future Systems. I really love this building. Has anyone seen images of this before? In Birmingham, England?
No.
Now, this looks like it's from the future, doesn't it? And it's 20 years, almost 20 years old now. So we're living in the future. Yeah. It's a little, you know, it's somewhat interesting that the exterior doesn't really prepare you. Yeah, really, like looking at it from the outside, it's a little hard to know like what are you getting into when you go in there. But the escalators, I think, are really done beautifully. Little escalators and bridges. Here in Japan, this soft and furry house, where it's really a bit of green design, it's meant to have all of this greenery growing on it. It's quite inviting. There's an interior. Still in Japan, the this truss wall house. I really like. It looks almost like it's made from like a single molded plastic or something from a little bit of a distance here. Sorry, not I find a better photo than that. At least not when I made this. But I love this like interior too. And Norman Foster, English architect. This is the new German Parliament at the Reichstag building in Berlin, which is the old an old neoclassical architecture, like Beaux-Arts style architecture, with this dome, and there's a spiral walkway. You can see people up here walking. It's like there's like a spiral on the spiral walkway on the inside of it. Yeah, I really like it when people merge ancient, like the old art, like really like neoclassical architecture and something contemporary. Prehistoric park. This built into this mound. So there's a lot of different, you know, unique solutions to architecture that have been practiced, even like, you know, what this is in like 90s into the early aughts, still, you know, 20 or more years old. People have been experimenting with new ideas in architecture and design and furnishings. And finally here, this is a returning to Chicago. This the restaurant Sushi Samba Rio. David Rockwell and friends. The Rockwell Group is a firm in New York founded by David Rockwell that does a lot of really quite interesting stuff. Yeah, I'd been there before I knew, before I knew. I've been, I went there once, and you can tell you're in a special place. And I later learned that these guys had done it.
How's the sushi?
Well, I only eat vegetarian sushi, so it was good.
Okay,
But
it's a must try.
I'd yeah, but I won't eat. I don't eat the raw fish. Just not my thing. Okay, that is that. All right, so what? Going to end the show. Stop sharing. What do you think of this stuff that we've been looking at? Do you prefer older styles? Do you like this newer stuff?
I like a lot of the new stuff for like public buildings, like the museums and stuff like that. And I think the houses are interesting. I just can't imagine. It seems like a lot of people that like they look like you have to be really wealthy to have a house that is built by one of these people. I mean, it's pretty crazy some of the stuff they do.
That's true. That's I think that's a good point. That a lot of the a lot of the stuff. It's a lot of these new ideas that are paid for by people with a lot of money. Really is not. It's really not attainable, or I guess it's something that's sort of out of reach for a lot of people. Even people that are that do well, they don't have that much money to spend on an architect that's going to um, sort of change change how we think about architecture. That takes a bit more. Like I mentioned, Frank Gehry with the Guggenheim Museum, the documentary A Constructive Madness goes through his the sort of his relationship with his client, um, Peter Lewis, and Peter Lewis is a billionaire, and so he could. I think I got from this that when they were like figuring out what are we going to do with this, he's still not happy, and he said, and I think he says to Frank Gehry, so I can pay you $10 million for planning and still not know what I'm going to get. And they're kind of arguing about this, but he kind of gives away. He paid $10 million and didn't even build the house because over the course of the years he was hiring him, that's what he paid Frank Gehry. And sort of pushed Frank Gehry to keep trying things and try to keep, get something that this guy's going to like. So it's a lot of money to, push to do some of this stuff, to do a lot of this stuff. And, in a way, it's kind of always been the, when you have a lot of free time, if you have, those people with idle time, and like if you go back to like the Middle Ages, almost nobody had the time to write or think about the nature of being and philosophy, and that was like a very select few people that were fortunate enough to either be wealthy or be in a position in the in the church to have sort of like earn that freedom, or sort of like be sort of lucky enough to have the freedom to think about something other than basic survival. But without them, we wouldn't get this. You wouldn't get an advancement in ideas. You wouldn't get an advancement in you know design, architecture, literature. Um, even like I think like in the Middle Ages, farmers sort of out of necessity did come up with innovations in agriculture, but that was kind of like their sort of like working laboratory, as the fields that they were working. So it is, sometimes it does make me think of this, that what about what about architecture for everybody? And I think that some of these very expensive projects can point the way for something that can be mass produced. So
That makes sense. I mean, I think I think the personal projects are important, like you said, for that reason, because that's how they evolve down to, in the future, the average Joe having something like that or whatever it is. But so yeah, I definitely think they're important. But I certainly love the accessibility via the public buildings, like the museums and stuff like that, where you get to experience it. That's really cool.
yes, definitely, it's nice that there is at least some of it is accessible. Yeah, and a lot of this, I think a lot of at this point, I think there's no excuse. Like if there ever is like architecture that is low cost, or like something that's made as affordable architecture, so that um, more people can afford decent housing. The cost of building like modern buildings has come down, where it's like there's a lot of prefabricated um, like concrete panels. They know, and pretty much anyone doing commercial buildings knows how to build these things. I think they could be built. I think that we could have it. I think it's also part of like the our like economic system and political system that sort of stands in the way. So I mean, everyone's not going to get a house designed by Rem Koolhaas, but we don't all need that much space either. So yeah. All right. I am fading a bit here. It's been kind of a wheezy day. Thank you for joining me here. We'll be back in person next week, and I will alert you to your final vocabulary forum assignment, which will focus on the 20th century, and So if you have your vocabulary cards done next Wednesday, please bring them to me, and please bring me the midterm set and the new ones. So you'll turn in all 25 to me. And if you don't have them next week, you will turn them in the week after, and I will be on campus to get them. I'll make sure it's very clear where you would leave them. Okay? But we'll talk more about that next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Welcome.
Feel
Better.
better.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.